Welcome to our deep dive into carbon dioxide capture and storage, or CCS, a technology at the heart of global climate change mitigation strategies. In this video, we'll explore why CCS has become a focal point for scientists, policymakers, and industries worldwide. We'll look at the urgent need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the role of CCS among other mitigation options, and how this technology could shape our energy future. Whether you're new to the topic or looking to expand your understanding, this journey will provide a comprehensive overview of CCS, its challenges, and its promise. Let's begin by understanding the context and background that led to this special focus on CCS. Behind this report is a global team of experts, including coordinating lead author Paul Froon from the UK and lead authors from Nigeria, Norway, Japan, the US, and Brazil. Their collective expertise spans science, engineering, and policy, ensuring a balanced and comprehensive assessment of CCS. Review editors from Peru and Germany further enhance the credibility and rigor of the findings. This international collaboration reflects the global importance of CCS and the shared responsibility in addressing climate change. As we move forward, keep in mind the diverse perspectives and expertise that have shaped this report. Why a special report on CO2 capture and storage? While CCS is technically feasible and builds on existing technologies, its potential role in climate mitigation wasn't always recognized. Only recently has the scientific community begun to appreciate its significance. As the literature and interest in CCS have grown, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) decided to undertake a thorough assessment. This report aims to provide a source of information on CCS comparable to that available for other, more established mitigation options. Let's explore what makes CCS unique and why it's now in the spotlight. Its core, carbon dioxide capture and storage, involves capturing CO2 from sources like power plants or industrial processes, transporting it and storing it away from the atmosphere for the long term. This can include capturing CO2 from burning fossil fuels or biomass, as well as from producing hydrogen, ammonia, or cement. The process separates CO2 from other gases, compresses it, and moves it to a storage site, often deep underground. By keeping CO2 out of the atmosphere, CCS aims to significantly reduce greenhouse gas concentrations and help stabilize the climate. IPCC's third assessment report made it clear. Most of the warming observed over the past 50 years is due to human activities, especially CO2 emissions from burning fossil fuels. Global average temperatures and sea levels are projected to rise under all scenarios unless we act. The United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change (UNFCCC) calls for stabilizing greenhouse gas concentrations to prevent dangerous interference with the climate system. But what level is safe? That's still under debate. What's certain is that deep reductions in emissions are needed, and CCS is one tool that can help us get there. CO2 is the largest contributor to human-caused greenhouse gas emissions. It's released by burning coal, oil, gas, and biomass, as well as by land clearance in certain industrial processes. Fossil fuel burning is virtually certain to dominate CO2 trends in the 21st century. In 2001, total emissions from fossil fuel consumption and flaring of natural gas reached 24 gigatons of CO2 per year. Industrialized countries were responsible for nearly half of these emissions, with developing countries' share rapidly rising. Understanding these sources is key to targeting mitigation efforts like CCS. There are several technological options for reducing net CO2 emissions. These include improving energy efficiency, switching to less carbon-intensive fuels, increasing the use of renewables or nuclear energy, enhancing natural carbon sinks like forests and soils, and of course capturing and storing CO2. Each option has its own advantages, limitations, and potential for emission reduction. CCS stands out as a way to address emissions from large, stationary sources, complementing other strategies in the broader fight against climate change. Improving energy efficiency is often the first step in reducing emissions. Advances in technology have made vehicles, appliances, and power generation much more efficient than in the past. Combined heating, cooling, and power systems can further cut emissions. However, while efficiency gains are significant, they alone are unlikely to achieve the deep reductions needed to stabilize the climate. That's why a portfolio of solutions, including CCS, is essential. Switching from high-carbon fuels like coal to lower-carbon options such as natural gas can be a cost-effective way to cut emissions. For example, replacing coal with gas in power generation can have CO2 emissions per unit of electricity. While this strategy is effective where gas is available, it's not a universal solution. It's another piece of the puzzle, working alongside renewables, efficiency, and CCS. Renewable energy sources like wind, solar, hydro, and biomass, as well as nuclear power, offer low or near-zero carbon alternatives to fossil fuels. Each has its own challenges, from cost and intermittency to public acceptance and waste management. Still, renewables are growing rapidly, with wind and solar leading the way. The role of nuclear power depends as much on politics and public opinion as on technical factors. Together, these sources can make deep cuts in emissions, especially when combined with CCS for remaining fossil fuel use. Forests and soils naturally absorb CO2 from the atmosphere, acting as carbon sinks. Enhancing these sinks through better land management, reforestation, and agricultural practices can help offset emissions. However, the capacity of natural sinks is limited by land use, environmental, and social factors. While important, natural sinks alone can't solve the problem, especially as some are turning from sinks to sources due to rising temperature. Now let's focus on CCS itself. This technology captures CO2 from large sources, like power plants and industrial facilities. then transports and stores it underground or in other reservoirs. CCS can also be combined with biomass energy to achieve negative emissions, actually removing CO2 from the atmosphere. The potential of CCS depends on factors like cost, storage capacity, and public acceptance. It's especially suited for large, centralized sources of emission. How much can CCS contribute? According to IPCC estimates, technological options including CCS could reduce global emissions by 25–40% by 2010, and even more by 2020. While energy efficiency offers the most potential in the short term, CCS's role is expected to grow, especially after 2020. The amount of CO2 that could be captured and stored may be much higher than previously thought, especially as technology advances and costs fall. Comparing mitigation options, it's important to consider not just cost, but also capacity, environmental impact, speed of deployment, and public acceptance. Marginal abatement cost curves help visualize the potential and cost-effectiveness of different strategies. CCS may be more suitable for some countries or sectors than others, depending on resources, infrastructure, and policy goals. Ultimately, a mix of solutions will be needed. CCS involves three main steps: capturing CO2 from a source, transporting it, usually by pipeline or ship, and storing it in a suitable reservoir. Capture technologies have evolved from methods used in gas production and industrial processes. Transport infrastructure is already in use in some regions, moving millions of tons of CO2 each year. Storage options include deep geological formations, depleted oil and gas fields, and in some cases, the deep ocean. There are several ways to capture CO2. Post-combustion capture removes CO2 from flue gases after fuel is burned. Pre-combustion capture separates CO2 before combustion, often in hydrogen production. Oxyfuel combustion burns fuel in pure oxygen, making CO2 separation easier. Each method has its own technical and economic considerations, and the choice depends on the type of plant and the intended application. Once captured, CO2 must be transported to a storage site. Pipelines are the most common method, already used extensively in the oil and gas industry. Ships and in some cases road tankers can also be used, especially for offshore or remote locations. The scale of transport infrastructure will need to grow significantly if CCS is widely adopted, raising questions about cost, safety, and public acceptance. CO2 can be stored in several types of reservoirs. Geological storage involves injecting CO2 deep underground into depleted oil and gas fields, deep saline formations, or on minimal coal seams. Ocean storage, though proposed, raises environmental concerns and is less developed. Other options include mineral carbonation, which locks CO2 into solid minerals. Each storage method has its own risks, monitoring requirements, and potential capacity. Make a significant impact, CCS must operate at a massive scale. A single coal-fired power plant can emit millions of tons of CO2 per year. Capturing and storing 85% of these emissions would require large, complex infrastructure. Pipelines hundreds of kilometers long, storage sites capable of holding gigatons of CO2, and robust monitoring systems are all part of the picture. The scale is daunting, but not unprecedented in the energy industry. Evaluating the environmental impact of CCS requires a systematic approach. Life cycle analysis (LCA) is used to compare the full system, including capture, transport, and storage, with a reference case without CCS. This helps identify changes in resource use, emissions, and potential risks. While CCS can reduce CO2 emissions, it may increase other impacts such as energy use and local environmental effects. Careful assessment is essential for informed decision-making. Cost of CCS includes capture, transport, and storage, as well as monitoring and, if needed, remediation. Costs are often expressed as dollars per ton of CO2 avoided. While CCS can be expensive, especially in early projects, costs are expected to fall as technology matures and economies of scale are realized. Revenue from enhanced oil recovery or emissions trading can help offset costs, making CCS more attractive to industry. Large-scale CCS raises concerns about potential environmental risks, especially if CO2 were to leak from storage sites. Monitoring is essential to ensure storage security, detect leaks, and provide data for regulatory compliance and emissions trading. Techniques like seismic surveys and chemical sampling are used to track CO2 underground. The frequency and duration of monitoring, especially after injection ends, are still being debated and will likely evolve with experience. There is enough storage capacity for CCS to make a difference. Initial estimates suggest that known geological reservoirs could hold amounts of CO2 comparable to what would be produced by thousands of large plants. However, uncertainties remain about the exact capacity, distribution, and accessibility of storage sites. The proximity of sources to storage reservoirs will influence the cost and feasibility of CCS projects. Key question for CCS is how long CO2 will remain securely stored. Geological storage can potentially retain over 99% of CO2 for thousands of years, based on natural analogs. Ocean storage may retain CO2 for centuries, while mineral carbonation offers near-permanent storage. However, sudden releases due to seal failure, earthquakes, or human activity are possible, though rare. Understanding and managing these risks is crucial for public trust and policy acceptance. From a policy perspective, how long does CO2 need to stay out of the atmosphere? If 99% is stored for periods longer than the fossil fuel era, it shouldn't increase future atmospheric concentrations. Some studies suggest that even a 1,000-year delay in emissions is nearly as effective as permanent storage. However, there must be an upper limit to unintended releases to ensure CCS is a credible mitigation tool. These questions are central to ongoing research and policy debates. CCS projects operate on multiple timescales. Power plants and infrastructure may last 30–40 years, while storage reservoirs must retain CO2 for centuries or longer. Climate mitigation itself is a long-term challenge, with atmospheric CO2 levels expected to rise, peak, and decline over hundreds of years. Effective CCS must bridge these timeframes, ensuring that storage remains secure well beyond the operational life of the facility. Deploying CCS would allow continued use of fossil fuels while minimizing their climate impact. This could help preserve existing energy infrastructure and improve energy security by maintaining access to diverse energy sources. However, it may also reduce the incentive to switch to alternative energy sources, potentially slowing the transition to a low-carbon economy. Balancing these effects is a key consideration for policymakers. Widespread adoption of CCS could reinforce the dominance of fossil fuel technologies, potentially leading to technology lock-in. This means that innovations in alternative energy sources might be slowed, as investment and attention focus on improving existing systems. On the other hand, CCS could be part of a diverse portfolio of solutions, complementing renewables, efficiency, and other strategies. The impact on technological diversity will depend on policy choices and market dynamics. CCS projects are capital-intensive and require significant investment. Regulations, emissions trading, and financial incentives can help make CCS economically viable. Mechanisms like joint implementation and the Clean Development Mechanism may provide opportunities for technology transfer and funding, especially in developing countries. However, uncertainties about long-term storage monitoring and liability remain barriers to widespread adoption. Storing CO2 underground raises new legal questions. What licensing procedures are needed? Who's responsible for long-term monitoring and liability if CO2 leaks decades or centuries later? International agreements such as the Law of the Sea and regional conventions may affect offshore storage. Developing clear, robust legal frameworks is essential for public trust and industry participation in CCS. Public attitudes towards CCS are still evolving. Most people are unfamiliar with the technology and may have concerns about safety, environmental impact, and comparisons to nuclear waste disposal. Effective public consultation, transparent communication, and robust monitoring are key to building trust. As CCS projects move from concept to reality, engaging communities and addressing their concerns will be critical for success. Climate change is deeply connected to issues of equity and sustainable development. CCS, like other mitigation options, must be assessed not only for cost-effectiveness, but also for its impact on development, job creation, and social justice. Will CCS help or hinder efforts to reduce poverty and improve living standards? Will it benefit some countries or communities more than others? These questions are central to policy debates and require careful consideration. UNFCCC calls for developed countries to help transfer environmentally sound technologies to developing nations. CCS is no exception. Making CCS accessible worldwide will require sharing knowledge, building capacity, and addressing barriers like intellectual property rights and financing. Some developing countries are already exploring CCS, especially where oil and gas expertise exists. Ensuring broad access to CCS will be vital for global climate goals. Barriers to CCS adoption include high costs, technical challenges, legal uncertainties, and limited public awareness. Intellectual property rights and access to capital can also slow technology transfer. Overcoming these obstacles will require coordinated action by governments, industry, and international organizations. As CCS technology matures, learning by doing and sharing best practices will help lower barriers and accelerate deployment. CCS is likely to be adopted first by countries with significant fossil fuel industries and technical expertise, such as those with oil and gas production. However, as costs fall and experience grows, more countries, including developing nations, may find CCS attractive. The potential for using CCS with biomass energy could offer unique opportunities for negative emissions and technology transfer, especially where suitable storage sites are nearby. CCS is not a silver bullet, but it can play a vital role in a diverse portfolio of climate solutions. Its greatest strength lies in addressing emissions from large stationary sources that are difficult to decarbonize by other means. When combined with renewables, efficiency, and other strategies, CCS can help achieve deep emission reductions needed to meet global climate targets. Future of CCS depends on continued research, demonstration projects, and supportive policies. As technology advances and costs decline, CCS could become a mainstream option for climate mitigation. International cooperation, public engagement, and robust legal frameworks will be essential for scaling up CCS and realizing its full potential. The coming decades will be critical for determining the role of CCS in the global energy transition. IPCC's special report on CCS covers a wide range of topics: capture technologies, transport, storage options, costs, environmental impacts, legal and regulatory issues, public acceptance, and technology transfer. It also examined the geographical match between CO2 sources and storage sites, and how CCS fits into energy system models. The report aims to provide a comprehensive, balanced assessment to inform policymakers, industry, and the public. CCS is a technically feasible, potentially powerful tool for reducing CO2 emissions from large sources. Its success will depend on cost, storage capacity, public acceptance, and supportive policies. While not a standalone solution, CCS can complement other mitigation strategies and help bridge the gap to a low-carbon future. Ongoing research, demonstration, and international cooperation are essential for unlocking its full potential. Despite its promise, CCS faces significant challenges. High costs, technical uncertainties, legal and regulatory hurdles, and public skepticism must all be addressed. Building the necessary infrastructure, ensuring long-term storage security, and integrating CCS into broader climate strategies will require sustained effort and investment. The path forward will not be easy, but the stakes, stabilizing the global climate, could not be higher. CCS offers opportunities for technological innovation, job creation, and economic development. Advances in capture efficiency, storage monitoring, and integration with renewable energy could make CCS more attractive and accessible. Countries and companies that invest early in CCS may gain a competitive edge in the emerging low-carbon economy. Innovation will be key to overcoming barriers and realizing the benefits of CCS. Effective policies are essential for scaling up CCS. This includes clear regulations, financial incentives, support for research and demonstration, and frameworks for monitoring and liability. International cooperation and alignment with climate goals will help ensure that CCS contributes meaningfully to emission reductions. Policymakers must balance economic, environmental, and social considerations as they shape the future of CCS. Success of CCS will depend on engaging a wide range of stakeholders: governments, industry, scientists, communities, and the public. Transparent communication, inclusive decision-making, and ongoing dialogue are crucial for building trust and addressing concerns. As CCS projects move forward, stakeholder engagement will help ensure that benefits are shared and risks are managed responsibly. As we look to the future, CCS stands as both a challenge and an opportunity. Its role in the global energy transition will depend on how we address technical, economic, and social barriers. With continued innovation, collaboration, and commitment, CCS could help pave the way to a more sustainable, climate-resilient world. The choices we make today will shape the legacy we leave for future generations. Summary: carbon dioxide capture and storage is a promising, though complex, tool in the fight against climate change. Its success will require overcoming technical, financial, legal, and social challenges. As research continues and experience grows, CCS could become a cornerstone of global mitigation efforts. Stay tuned for further developments and consider how CCS might fit into your own understanding of the climate challenge.